So we have a cover system in the game. It's purely dynamic. You just actually walk up the cover and Sean takes it. It's about making that Sean always look like a cool action hero. I'll shoot that guy in the knees. This guy's a heavy soldier. Takes a little more bullets. So it's very fluid though, because with our character that can run and jump and climb, we put a lot of care into making sure it would be very fluid inside of the environment. There's a lot of guys here. All right, so let me get up on this, plant my last bomb on this strut. So now I have one more I have to plant on the track. So what will happen is this train that the scientist is on, when that train hits this tracks, it'll hit that final charge and detonate that charge, set off all the secondary charges, and bury the train in the ravine. Another thing we like to talk about is we are this fantasy of the war. So you'll see things like Zeppelins flying around in our world. They were decommissioned after the Hindenburg for very, very good reason, but they're a great piece of fantasy and iconography in the world. And we actually use them as a fun piece of gameplay. So when you push the alarms up to a certain point in the game, they'll chase you around on the rooftops and try to take you out. All right, so right now I've been mainly using the MP40. It's pretty much or MP44. It's pretty much a classic German weapon. There's a lot of different weapons in the game. Oh, plant my charge here. There's a lot of different types of weapons. There's machine guns, pistols, rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, flamethrowers, rocket launchers, a lot of different tools for the player to use in the game. And there's also fictional weapons. We have these guys we call terror squads, which are these big, heavily armored Nazis, and they have their own fictional weapons that we made up. We're not tied to just German weapons even in the game. We have a black market, so we can pull American and British weapons in the game as well. So we're going to get away from the bridge. I've got all the charges planted. There's a lot of different ways to cool down the alarms in the world. There's the traditional like escape the bubble, as we call it in the game. There's also that green dot as a hiding spot in the world. We have a lot of those layered in the world. In Paris, where it's heavily occupied, it's really hard to get away from, like get out of the bubble. So we have these hiding spots, and there's pissoirs, which are like urinals you can dash in and Nazis will go running by. There's girls you can grab and kiss. And there's also like what we call fight back zones, which are when you inspire the areas and you bring color, the resistance will bunker down in areas and you can pull Nazis up to those spots and the resistance will fight alongside of you and push back the alarms. So, like I said, our missions aren't these traditional sandbox missions of just very simple objectives. It's a lot of big objectives pulled together. A lot of storytelling goes into those. So there's a little bit of storytelling that'll come out along the way as Skylar and I drive across the city. So other things in our game is, so we have a lot of big epic missions in the game, but there's also this layer in our game that we call the occupation, or the ambient occupation. It's things like that searchlight, or there's a radar dish up here, this tank and this tower. And for us, it was about making a collections mechanic in the game, but it not being passive. You're not just walking over and picking up hidden packages. You're killing generals. You're blowing up tanks. You're taking out sniper towers. So it is like a collections mechanic because you get rewarded for it, and it is persistent in the world. So when you take out that tank or that sniper tower, it's gone for good in the game, and it can impact how you play the missions in the game as well. I'll show you actually along the train actually what I'm talking about. So we're reporting back into Wilcox here. Wilcox works for the British SOE along with Skylar. Sean and Wilcox aren't good friends. They don't get along. We have very fleshed out characters. They all have their own motivations in the world. And so Sean and Wilcox have had generally some pretty harsh words for each other. But again, Sean is working with them out of necessity to get to Dierker. So what they broke down to Sean is that he needs to now get on the train that the scientist is on, disable the communications car, go jam the throttle on the train, then get back and pull the scientist off of the train. And for us, it's about having these big kind of set-piece moments inside of a sandbox type gameplay. So in this, we have literally, the train is literally a big giant moving level through our sandbox world. So this is a big train yard here. There's a lot of different ways through here. I know a pretty sneaky route that I'll take over here. Let's grab my machine gun. But it's literally about how the player wants to play this. And like I said, our fantasy was really wanting that moment of being on top of the train. So I'll jump up here, sneak up behind this guy, smack him over the head. Now use take his rifle as a tool, and you can see there's a lot of different things in here that we use the color kind of through the environment. So big mission actually waiting ahead of here, and actually what happens to actually pull the scientist off of the train.